Okay, ladies, well, the first thing I want to know is what are the advantages to being a small DMO? Give us some props here. Amy.
So I represent the state of Indiana, and most people at the state level really have big budgets and big staff.
Yeah.
We do not, but I will say whenever I hire somebody or I have an intern, I tell them two things. Relationship building, because it's all about the people.
Absolutely.
Building those partnerships, which can turn into co-ops and even more and bigger ideas, and then resourcefulness. And so one of my mantras is, work smarter, not harder. So, when you have some limits and limitations, then you just have to figure it out yourself. And, you have a small cohesive team, and those relationships are just as important as your stakeholders and partners.
Absolutely.
So those
I
are
love
the two
that.
things.
Yeah, I love that. Lisa, introduce yourself and tell us about what the advantages are for a small DMO.
Well, I'm Lisa Logan, and I'm from Stafford County, which is just south of Washington, D.C., so we are surrounded by very large DMOs. So trying to figure out how to fit into that and make a name for ourselves, what we've discovered is that it's really helpful to partner. Like Amy was saying, partnering is just the most important thing we can do. And we've really started partnering with the state, with the larger localities above us, because we're just this tiny little county. But when your name is beside Fairfax or Alexandria or Loudoun County or the state of Virginia, you kind of get a little bit more bang for your buck. So that's really, we're a staff of 2. We were a staff of 4, now we're a staff of 2. And so we are really finding ways to partner with as many people in the industry as we can.
Great. Stacey.
Hey everybody, I'm Stacey Dickson from Lake Lanier, and if you don't know, that's the most visited Corps of Engineers lake in the United States. So perception versus reality, we're Atlanta's Hamptons. We're just outside of Atlanta, about 45 minutes north of the city, but we have less than 1,000 sellable hotel rooms and 12 million visitors a year. So you're welcome to all of our neighbors because those people have to stay somewhere. So that gives us an interesting dilemma to be in, a very large attraction, attracting literally millions of people with a very small CVB and very small budget. So I would say agility, our smallness gives us the ability to pivot. So when we see an opportunity or a partnership, we are able to jump. We're not too big to change. So that for me has been the best thing for us.
I love that. I think agility, partnership, relationships, I mean, that tracks for any size DMO, but I think the small DMOs, it's a necessity, it's a have to. So those are our kind of advantages to being small: nimble, agility, and relationships. So what's a pain in your ass, Lisa? What's the bad part?
Well, if I'm being honest, it's government red tape because I'm a government entity. But there's a lot of things that become very difficult when you're a small DMO trying to play with the big boys, basically. Competition to bring things. We have about 2,700 hotel rooms, but we're kind of an oddity in the fact that they're filled up. We're 70 to 80% occupied during the week with government business. So I'm trying to fill weekends while everybody in the United States is driving down Interstate 95. So traffic is a pain in my backside. So that's finding out how to reach those people who are coming from New York to Miami, or just going through from Richmond to DC, and finding the best way to utilize our budget and technology to reach those people. We have really spent the last 5 years trying to reach out and get into any new technology that we can reach out and get those people to stop and not just get stuck there.
Perfect. Any other disadvantages to being small?
Yeah, I have something I want to add. Anybody else, can I get an amen? Did you never remember running for public office, but you're in politics? Right.
Man.
So that leads back to board development. Being careful who you pick, training them, having ethics clauses and things like that, because when you're small and you have the microscope on you and you have a board member that goes rogue, things can go bad really quick. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest things, and then burnout. Because when we're all a small staff and everybody's wearing several hats, that can be a problem. And multi-generational, the older I get, the younger the employees get. And I'm finding out that other generations are not down with having 3 different jobs for one salary. So that's been a challenge as well.
Awesome. Lisa?
I was just going to echo.
I'm sorry, Amy.
That's okay.
I just said Lisa, and I just looked right at you.
That's all right. We're all Lisa, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I was going to echo what they both said as government red tape. As a state agency, it's harder to get things done, but we have 92 counties and we represent all of them. They all have their different ideas, their different marketing plans, and how do you have one cohesive message and bringing that all together? And so that's where you have to build those relationships, as I said earlier.
I want to dial in on that a little bit, because the cohesiveness of having the fractional different marketing out there, let's dial into all of us a little bit more on that. So how do you bring that cohesively? If you've got your hotels marketing one way, you may have your restaurants, you have your mom and pops. What's the strategy for a small DMO to bring those disparate messages together?
I'll start. You can think about your answers. So everybody in the DMO marketing world, they have their taglines. And what we did recently is we decided to come up with an identifier. So it's simply in Indiana. And so we're not changing what any of our DMOs are doing, any of our CVBs are doing. We're just using it as a compliment.
Very smart.
And so you can build your own headline with that, your own tagline with that, whatever it is. Find your adventure in Indiana. You make my move in Indiana. Whatever that is, it's meant to complement what others are doing. So we're not taking away from anyone's logos. We're not taking away from anyone else's branding. But we're raising the perception of what there is to do in Indiana. Hike in Indiana, bike in Indiana, whatever that is, whatever your message is, just build on what we're doing. And so we built a toolkit that's free that has everything from print ads to Google ads. It runs the gamut, has everything, swag, you name it, we've built it, and it's free. Everybody can download it. We have a graphic artist on staff that actually will help you do it. So that's kind of what our mantra is how we can be all to all people.
I love that. I love as a state with lots of competition with other big state budgets that, thank you for finding the slide for me, with other big state budgets that you're leaning in to help like that. And I love in Indiana. That's a great way to do it. Good toolkit.
That's a tough one, I think, that for us, we're blessed in that there's really a lot of buy-in that Lake Lanier is the common thread. So we're not as bound by every city, every county having to have their name on everything. And so there's a common agreement that if we use that moniker, the rising tide floats all the boats. So we're lucky in that regard.
I love that.
We've been trying to partner with, but at the same time fight the neighbor that's the little city that has all the, Fredericksburg has all the recognition, but our board wants it to be Stafford. So we've been trying to utilize the Washington's backyard theme because we are 35 minutes from Washington, D.C., and we share that with all our stakeholders, and we provide, like you have done, a toolkit and marketing for any events that they're doing and sponsorship programs so that we can get them to buy in. So with a small budget, one of the things that we've created is a sponsorship if you're having an event so that some of even the hotels or any of our assets can call us up, apply for the small sponsorship. It's not a lot. It's $3,000, but and then we do all your marketing for you. So that's how we keep branding consistent is we offer to do that. Now, it's hard with 2 staff members, but we reach out to local small businesses and work with the local advertising agencies to help us out. And that's how we are able to kind of not force our branding on people, but it's amazing what you can do if you give them just a little bit of funding and they're like, oh, okay, I'll buy into that because you're helping them out. So that's how we've kind of tackled that.
I love that. Helping others when you need help and staff too. That's a great takeaway. Stacey? Are you good? Yeah, okay. Okay, so quick question here on advertising channels. So we have limited resources, we have limited money, we have limited people, but we have a plethora of growing advertising channels with social media, with Hulu, with streaming, with audio. How do you choose where to put your money?
Go ahead.
Yep, go for it.
I'll start with that because when I started in tourism about 7 years ago, prior to that I had done events for over 20 years, but when I started in tourism 7, 8 years ago, I was shocked at the number of phone calls that I would get daily. Would you like to buy an ad here? Would you like to buy an ad there?
There's a
And-
special email folder for that, too.
There is. And so trying to sort through that and figure that out. And for the first year, my advertising budget went very quickly because I'm like, oh, okay, we should probably just do everything. And then I started to trying to drill down and really try to make a plan. And the biggest thing that helps me is the beginning of each year, we sit down and we say, what are our goals for this year? And what are we trying to reach? And so instead of casting a very large net, we are specifically fishing in certain ponds. And that has helped us a great deal. We have to be very specific, and it has to align with our plan and we have to shift on a dime. So being small, we can do that, because there may be a day that a board member comes and says, tomorrow, you're in charge of this, and you need to market it, and there you go. So I have to figure what's the best way to do that. But I think just having a plan and finding out what works best for that plan.
Yeah, for us, we like to say our big brothers and sisters, they have the shotgun approach. They're using birdshot, and we are snipers. So we're always narrowing it
Snipers,
down.
yes,
and
yes.
Only shooting for the things where we know we can hit the target. And some ways we do that. Everybody's this morning has talked a lot about partnerships, but I can guarantee you, like, our entire advertising budget is less than a lot of you spend on one print ad. And so that really makes it where we have to make every dime into $1 or $100 or $1,000. So an example of that is a co-op that we do with our neighbors in the Northeast Georgia mountains. And it's a summer campaign that's actually launching late spring. It's a $90,000 campaign. We only pay $5,000 into it, and we get print, billboard, television, radio, internet ads, the direct email blast,
Wow,
a whole
good
bunch
co-op.
of stuff for that. And then research. We are doing some destination research specific to our destination, but then our state Explore Georgia office does have an incredibly great, engaged research director who is helping give us some guidance on, where and how and when to place ads.
Great, great. Favorite channel, Amy?
I don't know if I have a favorite channel, because I'm a big fan of the media mix to be out there, but we're very targeted in our markets. We know we're a drive state. We've done the research. We know where our people are coming from, where they're spending their dollars. So we hit that first, and we do it on a lot of platforms. But we also offer co-ops at the state level, and we do one in the spring, summer, and then the fall, which is our drive times. And we do run the gamut of the media mix, because we can barely afford TV and streaming and cable, but in our drive markets, it's more affordable, but we do a one-to-one match, and that's how we get great partners to come aboard.
I love that. That's a great strategy. I'm going to follow up on this one with one. It's not on the screen. What is the one platform that you're staying away from? Maybe because of bandwidth or money. Is there one? Are you all TikToking?
I was just going to say, we have been banned from TikTok. We are one of the states that have been banned. So that government red tape, we cannot. So we're looking at some kind of ambassador program that somebody can get our message out on TikTok. So
Smart. Any favorite channel? Any no channel?
No, I think social media is really driving everything that we're doing. It's just so immediate and again,
Right.
flexible and agile. So for us, that's where we're, focusing most of
Makes a lot of sense for smaller budgets and small, goes so much further, even if you're paying the media paid part of it. The CPCs on Facebook and Meta are so much less than Google and so forth. So good piece on that. Let's go to your teams for a second. Tell us about a time when your team, or yourself, since you're a team of two, exceeded your expectations, and what was that strategy? Just tell us one of these awesome stories about how you or your team pulled something off that you may not have thought you could have before it happened.
I'll go first.
Awesome.
I have a couple. One is a marketing program, and one was a community relations project. So I'll give a shout out to ESTO, to U.S. Travel. Anybody in here attend ESTO? Events like this and ESTO are just phenomenal, and I have to say that U.S. Travel's educational event is phenomenal, and every time we go, even though we're hearing from the the huge national campaigns, every year we go, we are able to take something away and scale it down to our bite size. And that's worked for us. An example of that is a marketing campaign we did. It was the last season premiere of Game of Thrones on HBO. And we did an ice cream promotion all summer called Game of Cones. And it featured all of our ice cream and popsicle places and everything. And we thought, this will be a great idea. And then, oh my God, it was wild. We really underestimated the response that we had. And we did all of the back end work ourselves. So we couldn't really afford to hire a platform company that could create a geo-positioned app for us for that campaign. So we scoured the internet and found a platform where we could do it ourselves. So, that was amazing. But we did have a really great response to that, and it helped us build some relationships with those vendors out in our community. And then the other is in our community, and with Brazelton, our neighbor, we share Road Atlanta. And over the last, about 6 years ago, they were purchased by NASCAR and sponsored by Michelin. And so now we have Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Well, one of their biggest event of the year is the Le Mans race, and it attracts over 100,000 visitors a year. And so our whole community agrees this is a big event, but we have never really been involved in it. And when Michelin came in, they built a new tower for VIPs, and they said they wanted hospitality ambassadors, and they wanted them from the tourism industry. And so they came to us, and we were like, okay, there's 3 of us. Oh my God, how are we going to do this? And we were able to engage our board members, elected officials, our stakeholders in the community, leaders from local community organizations, all of whom had a great interest in the event, but had never had an opportunity to actually be engaged in it. And we did all of that. We're on our 4th year of doing it now, and they're paying us to do it.
Incredible.
So that was a great community outreach.
That's incredible. And I love the Game of Cones. I feel like pop culture marketing is really a stay for small, nimble DMOs and large DMOs. Like, it's right there. It's right in front of you. What a brilliant strategy. That's awesome.
So with the team of 2, I think we exceed expectations every
day.
But a couple months ago, we received a lead from the state of Virginia that they wanted to host their visitor center seminar at somewhere in the Northern Virginia area. And we don't have the biggest conference center. I mean, we can seat 300. We don't have the grandest of tourism assets. We have some great tourism assets, but we're not, Fairfax or Alexandria. So we sat down as a team, and we put in a bid, and we got this event. And we met with the state of Virginia. They came down, we talked through what we were going to do, and we picked a date. And I looked at my calendar, and I'm like, I am in the Bahamas the week that you want to be here. And they're like, well, that is the only week we can do. So I worked with my one staff member, and then we had some partners that helped us. We put this event together, and we added some things to it to be able to have 3 nights instead of just the 2 nights, so that we could get those extra room nights, of course. And we were able to showcase every one of our high-end assets to this group. And when I got back, I had multiple emails that this was the best event they had had in over 20 years. And I was like, go team, I was in the Bahamas. I'm glad you guys did a great job. But that was, they did a great job on that. And with low budget, low staff, they worked 32 hours to 50 hours in 2 days, but they pulled it off and did a great job. So that was one thing that we did. And then we put on American Junior Golf Association and last year, and we went above and beyond with that, and ended up winning their Newcomer of the Year award this year because of the way we just went out and we raised the highest amount of charity that they had done. So both times the team that we did have more people at that time, like 3 people. So the team just went above and beyond to make sure that it got done, and people remembered that Stafford was, going to take care of you if you came.
That's incredible.
Well, I talk a lot about paid media, but earned media is also key, and most of you in this room know that, and I come from a journalism background, so right before COVID hit in 2020, we were notified that because of some media work that I did, we were going to be named one of the 20 places to go in 2020 by Fromers.
Wow.
So yeah, that was a big deal. So we decided to build an earned campaign around it. We went out and got 2 media partners, a TV station and a statewide newspaper. And this was basically just to build pride and ambassadors in the state. And it was to show that, somebody in the north may not know, something in the south. So we built 20 lists of 20 things to do. We called it the 20 and 20. Started going gangbusters. And then all of a sudden COVID hit.
Oh my gosh.
So, the word everybody likes to say is pivot. And we did. We still had our media partners, which was great, and we turned it more into a statewide residential pride program. And so then, it wasn't about the big assets at that time. It was about we had exactly 20 drive-in movie theaters, and that's what people wanted to do during COVID. We worked with our Department of Natural Resources to pick, the 20 most natural spots that people could visit. And most of these things were free or low budget. So as you know, everybody's doing their home renovation projects and getting outdoors. So that was really, really big. We had ended up with over 1,000 media hits. And, if you really want to look at the AVE on that, it was about $3 million. And it was just one of those things that we created all the content. We were able to pivot. And at that time, we were a staff of 6. And so.
It's a really small staff for a
Yes,
state.
for a state. And if you want to look at that, our capital city has 60 staffers. So,
Wow.
yeah, so even in their budgets, 3 times more than ours, but we're working on it. But, I always say, paid media is great, but without the support of earned media, your owned media, and shared media with partners, you can really make something happen, even if it's a small idea. But we think it was a big idea.
I love that. You're right. It's so much about the ecosystem, and I think that's what all you ladies kind of touched on, is there's an ecosystem of these successes, and those are amazing stories. So just because I know we have a lot of first-timers in here, I also want to step back, because you have very different types of organizations, a state, and you're a government organization, and you're a nonprofit. So could you all just explain a little bit about your orgs to the group?
Sure. So we are a nonprofit 501c3 organization, but considered quasi-governmental. So we do have, obviously we're all tax funded, but we get some other perks, like our county provides us with free office space and IT support and things like that, that help us be able to divert those dollars that we would be spending on overhead costs directly into marketing. So that's been great for us. And it also opens up some other doors for state, federal grant opportunities, and being able to host things like a cocktail party that our, municipal friends can't do.
Right, right. Awesome.
And we are a government agency, so we're a division of Parks, Recreation, Facilities, and Tourism. So we are 100% funded by the state tourism, the county tourism tax in the state of Virginia. And we are limited by all government limitations. So if we, for instance, the Virginia Tourism Corporation event that we just did, they wanted to do a wine tour. So to be able to do that wine tour, the winery had to find a way to pay for the wine, because it's not something we could do. So we do have those limitations, but we're run by a board and supported 100% by the tourism tax.
Awesome.
So we have the same challenges. We used to be straight government agency. We're now a quasi-government agency for the state. What that means is that we're state funded, but we now have the opportunity, we have a foundation to raise our own dollars. Oh. And so all of those dollars we can put into pilot programs, we can put into grant programs, and of course marketing. So yeah, a lot of red tape, same situation.
Absolutely. Yeah, lots of different situations. And I know every DMO's got a little bit different, and your roles in DMOs are a little bit different. But I think the most, I don't want to say restrictive, but like you talked about politicians, I think the most restrictive is probably in the government situation. It's a little less, ability to move around and be nimble on. Awesome. Let's see if I can get my slides back up. I think our slides ended our time a little early, but so tell me what your, gosh, I lost my slides, guys. Thank you. All right, so in terms of handling challenges, which I know we've talked about a little bit, but what's your go-to? I love what Kara said earlier when she asked about the quote. So what's your inspiration quote? What's your go-to when you're dealing with challenges? and I'll give you a second and I'll tell you what mine is.
Okay.
So, and this is kind of works for life. Like, this is my absolute favorite quote. Les Brown trained me several years ago, and he's got something that he says that always reminds me of just do what is in your gut. And that quote is, other people's opinion of you is none of your business.
I like that. I might steal that.
Go for it.
No, it's what I said earlier, is to work smarter, not harder. And so challenges come up every day. It doesn't matter if it's with the state government. It doesn't matter if it's with, a travel writer that didn't write something nice, or it's about travel writers that don't give you the time of day because they have no idea of what you're all about.
Right.
But I think it's just a matter of educate, and let people learn about what you do, because people think tourism is like fluff, which I'm like, we have the ROI. We can show you the economic impact numbers. It really is economic impact. And I think that's the key, is I fall back on that, as what I do every day, means I'm giving something back to the state.
I love that.
Well, mine is going to be more along the lines of Dory and just keep swimming, because most days
Good advice.
I'm not sure where I'm going. I can't remember where I've been, and I just hope I can get there.
Fortitude, love that.
Well, being in that David and Goliath situation a lot, one of the things that we fall back on is, all of us as adults, we have our skills, and certainly, we know what we're doing sometimes, but really everybody's faking it to make it right out in this world. Nobody gave us a handbook on how to adult or do this job in particular. And so it's being flexible and keeping your head up and walk forward like you know what you're doing, even if you're questioning yourself, and people will generally agree that you do know what you're doing.
I think that's just great advice for anybody all along. Like, I've tried to unsubscribe from adulthood. It doesn't work.
That's what drinking's for.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to kind of push on what you said a little bit about destination development and the ROI and economic impact. And I think that's something like the relevancy of DMOs has been a long conversation, and got accelerated because now they need us after, the positive to that was they needed us after post-pandemic, but I think that's a continued piece of it. So from a destination development standpoint, I know you with like limited hotel rooms, that part of it, what role does the DMO play in marketing versus destination development?
I can start with that one.
Go for it.
I'll say that, like we pointed out about the hotel rooms, that the funding, the inventory is just not there. So for years, we've all been looking, where else can we find the money? How can we grow our budget? And so 12 years ago, we were way ahead of our peers and competitors in aggressively pursuing revenue from short-term rentals. And so way back in like 2007, 2008, we got our county on board, we got ordinances in place, we were collecting it then. And then, so as we got into the 20-teens, and there was a lot of law and questions and conversations being made about the Airbnb not charging taxes and things like that, we were already ahead. And so that segment of our budget has grown about 600% since 2007. Wow. Yeah, so we almost have more beds in short-term rentals now than we do in hotels. So if we had not convinced our elected officials that this was worth pursuing then, and had not been harvesting that and growing and cultivating it over these last almost 20 years now, then we wouldn't be where we are right now with it.
Yeah, and there's a big push on short-term rentals and DMOs starting to become bedfellows. So that's awesome.
I think that destination development starts with community development. I think that you have to sell your community on the community they live in. They have to see, everybody's got a Facebook channel that their neighbors go on and complain about this or complain about that, or there's nothing to do. And so if you're constantly, having the community comment that there's nothing to do, nowhere to go, that we've got to travel here or travel there. That's your first part of development. If you have to develop a community of ambassadors who are willing to say, yes, there are things to do here. Don't forget to come and see this event. Don't forget to come and see that. And then partnering with economic development and what they're bringing to the locality to find, ways to bring more tourism type assets, but realizing that large companies that come to your area, a lot of the times they end up there because they visited it or something. And so if they come and their kid's like, I'm bored to death and I'm just in the hotel pool because there's nothing to do, well, they probably don't want to bring their business there and hear their employees complain constantly there's nothing to do. So I really believe the first step is community development, developing events for your community, developing ambassadors out of your community, and partnering with your community and your board to show that tourism is valuable, and it's not just we're trying to bring more people to the area to take over our parks, but we're trying to bring those people to increase the income so that we can build better parks for the community, because it goes in a circle.
It's like the Moore-Gas saying that, if you build a place that people want to visit, you'll build a place that people want to live. So I truly do believe that. And I would say that, destination development is really the core of what we do, because you're not going to promote something that, hasn't been developed or isn't quite up to par. And so we do have grants that do that, and we do work with our economic development. I will say, one of the things that, we have just done recently with our new In Indiana identifier was an arts and placemaking grant. So it was very, very little money. I mean, it was like, a couple $1,000s, wasn't anything much, but, people started, taking pride in their community, and they put up murals, they built sculptures. The only caveat to getting the money was to use the identifier to uplift everybody.
I love that. I love that. And I think you make great points. Like, we used to call that, with the community part of it, I think it's also so awesome that we're getting back to the community and where we live. And I love Mara's quote about that. And I heard somebody say, and it's so true, how it used to be, it was like pest control. So it was like, oh, they're just talking. Those are just residents. They just think that the tax comes from them. But now we're at the place where we can bridge that gap, make that relationship, make it a great place to live, make it a great place to visit and travel. So I want to end up with a question for you ladies, because a lot of us in here probably did not start out thinking we're going to be in DMOs and tourism. That may not have been our career path. So let's talk about that. How did you end up in tourism?
Mine's probably the quickest and easiest. I did events for 20 years, moved to Northern Virginia, and was working for the sheriff in events. And this job posted in the county that said tourism. And I'm like, what in the world is tourism? And what do they do? And so I interviewed for the job, and they offered me the job, and I realized I don't really think they knew what they did. And so I'm like, this is great. I get to make this from the ground up, whatever I want it to be. And so I started working with the state of Virginia to turn our tourism office into a tourism office, not just a place that marketed little local events, but to really try to turn it around so it was a tourism office. So that's how I got there.
Yeah, I found it on accident, actually. Never knew there was such a thing as a CVB. And when I was in school, I got a job as a civilian with the United States Marine Corps, because in my hometown, there's Marine Base. And the job I had was in a division called the Morale, Welfare, and Recreation, which, if you're familiar at all with military, those are the folks that have the golf courses and the nightclubs and restaurants, and also promote travel to the service members and their families. And so that was a super fun job when you're a young 21-year-old person. And during that time, I also had opportunity to take 300 Marines to Disney World one time.
Wow.
That was a lot of fun. But in that evolution, through our base office, we were engaged with the Chamber of Commerce, and then the CVB was under the chamber, and that led to joining the CVB, and then I've been in that job ever since.
How many years have you
The
been?
best job in the world. Oh, we have to go there?
Yes, we have to go there.
8-ish, something like that.
Yeah. So now it's life and passion. That's kind of what happens to us in the industry. It kind of sucks us in, and then we're just there. We're in there.
Well, I spent 20 years in journalism, TV news specifically. So I saw the good, I saw the bad.
Yeah.
I'd actually worked with some DMOs that I still work with today. So I knew about them, but I didn't know exactly what they did and the economic impact. But man, they gave some great feature stories, for news when you needed to lighten it up.
Yeah.
I was working as executive producer, and I did special projects, and I was working on the state's bicentennial, which the tourism office was overseeing in 2016, and they said, you're doing really great work on this bicentennial. You should come work with us. And, I said,
Cool.
Well, let me think about it. And I didn't really think about it too long because it was just a group of fun people. And we like to say that, hospitality is real. Hoosier hospitality is what we call it. And it truly was that. And I can't look back and have any regrets.
I love it. I love it. Any last minute advice words for some of our newcomers, people who are new in the industry? I know we've got a lot of newcomers here. What's your best advice?
One thing I wanted to point out and invite any of the executive directors who are in the room, we have a DMO executive closed group on Facebook. So if you don't know about that, that's only for CVB execs. And within that forum, you can ask any questions. There's things posted, documents and things like bylaws and board handbooks and stuff like that. And you can basically ask anything. And it's all different sizes of DMOs on the forum. And so it's been a really great thing for my office. And then I've met and gotten to know other directors in other parts all across the country from it as well. So I would say join that if you just send your request in there. And then I forgot to mention that ESTO is in Savannah this year and the registration is now open. So go sign up.
Love it.
Forgot what
Last minute advice?
I had something in my head, and I was like, Savannah, I could go to Savannah. That would be nice. Totally lost it. Just keep learning and realize that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. One of the things that, coming into this, not having any clue what was going on, I started looking at destinations that were succeeding, looking at destinations that I had visited and thought were cool, and started taking little parts of what they did and incorporating it where we are. We're not Charleston, but they had a really cool website, so we kind of looked at that and use that as an example. We don't have all the things that Fairfax and Loudoun have, but I met up with those guys and said, you guys want to partner and let's do some marketing together? So reach out to your peers, keep learning, and don't reinvent the wheel, because work harder, smarter, not harder.
Right, yeah. So mine is really, it's simple, and it really is about networking. And so it's conferences like this, it's conferences like ESTO, and learning from peers that do the same thing you do and understand. Because I can go home and talk about work, and it's like, what are you talking about? Not everybody understands, but the people in this room understand what you're talking about. So when you want to have those conversations and bounce ideas, the Facebook group, conferences, whatever it is. I do a group, we do social state groups and PR groups where we just do a Zoom, and just talk about what's going on, what does somebody need help with, what questions, so.
Yeah, I think really dialing in, some of my favorite advice on that comes from Guy Kawasaki, who says when you go to conferences, you eat like a bird and then poop like an elephant, which means you take what really works for you out of the conference if you hear it, and then when you get back home to your colleagues, you tell everything that you possibly can. Yeah. Before we close with these ladies, we're going to give them a thunderous round of applause when we get there. I also want to give a big shout out to Ashley and Maddie. 24 years ago, I stood on, well, not this stage because it was in Dallas, but I was one of two of the first speakers at eTourism Summit when there were probably 13 attendees in the room. So this is an incredible session. So happy you have us all here. What a great homecoming. Thank you, ladies, for such an awesome thing. Connect with them on LinkedIn. I'm Jenn Barbee, and if you want to follow me, this is what I look like from the back.